Okay. Our group, which was EST1, did a replication study of internet based contingency management, increases walking in sedentary adults. I'm Kayla Hodges.
I'm Catherine Adams.
I'm Lauren Campbell.
I'm Haley Mancuso.
And I'm Tyra Washington.
The study that we replicated was titled Internet-Based Contingency Management Increases Walking in Sedentary Adults and was completed by Allison N. Curdy and Jesse Dallery in 2013. The purpose of the study stemmed from the fact that fewer than 5% of adults meet the Center for Disease Control's current physical activity recommendations of 150 minutes of physical activity weekly. This can be done by exercising 30 minutes each day for 5 days out of the week. Adults who don't get this level of activity are at increased risk of developing heart disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, and certain types of cancer. It's also known that adults who do meet the CDC's recommended physical activity levels tend to engage in exercise that is easy, inexpensive, and convenient. Walking is a perfect example of this type of physical activity, and Curdy and Dallery used this information to develop an intervention aimed at increasing walking in sedentary adults over the age of 50. They used a contingency-based management intervention that was chosen as an evidence-based objective measurement of target behavior. Contingency-based management allows individuals to earn reinforcers, in this case money, contingent on meeting an objectively verifiable goal, an individual step goal. The three basic requirements of contingency-based interventions are that the target behavior is easily detected and measured, reinforcement is provided contingent on the target behavior, and reinforcement is withheld when not demonstrating the target behavior. This particular study had two different parts, Experiment 1 and Experiment 2. For the purposes of our replication, we replicated Experiment 1. There were 6 participants in the original study in Experiment 1, ranging in age from 50 to 71 years old. During baseline, none of the participants had step counts over 6,000 steps. Participants created video entries documenting their step counts and also submitted activity logs during intervention. In Experiment 1, the target behavior, the step count, is detected using a Fitbit device. Reinforcement in the form of money was given to participants upon completion of reaching their individual step goal for 3 out of 5 consecutive days. A new goal was created once the goal was met. No money was earned when the goal was not met, and the participant remained at that goal for an additional 5-day block. The results of Experiment 1 showed that all participants increased their steps between 80% and 255.7%. All participants moved through at least 2 step goals during intervention and reached a goal of 10,000 steps daily. Following Experiment 1, participants were surveyed regarding treatment acceptability. Participants showed a high level of satisfaction with this intervention, specifically in the areas of ease of use, helpfulness, and convenience. Experiment 2 mirrored Experiment 1, but did not have a monetary compensation component. 5 out of 6 participants increased their step goals in Experiment 2, and with more modest increases than in Experiment 1. Overall results supported the implementation of an internet-based contingency management to increase walking, and that having a monetary compensation piece did have a positive effect on results. In both Experiment 1 and in Experiment 2, participants were likely to go back to previous levels of walking when the goals were not in place.
The CDC states that adults should work out for 150 minutes in a week time frame. This can be done in 30 minutes each day for about 5 days during a week's time. And the time can be broken up. You can do 15 minutes at one point and 15 minutes at another point, but as long as it's 30 minutes each day. And also, it can be done in a way where you do not have to go to the gym and spend money for a membership. You can do exercises at home that would count towards the 30 minutes. Unfortunately, less than 5% of adults actually are meeting that recommendation. So that is an issue because meeting that recommendation can limit health concerns such as heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, and certain types of cancer. So with that being said, the purpose of the study was to increase walking in adults to prevent those health concerns like hypertension, certain cancers, and diabetes. So the purpose of the study was to use an internet-based contingency to increase walking in adults, and walking was chosen because it is something that adults do frequent. It does not cost any money, and it's easy and convenient to do.
For the methods section of this intervention, our participants consisted of 5 members of our group. We range from ages 24 to 40 years old, all female with typical health and exercise levels. The behavioral definition of stepping is defined as a repeated walking, running, jumping, or jogging with a sufficient impact against the surface that would be measured with the Fitbit device. Even further, it's defined as moving one foot, whether it's your right or your left, picking it up off the ground and placing it either in front or behind of you to retouch the floor. This is the definition that we used to score each step throughout our day. There was no specific setting in which this intervention took place, as we all live in different locations and carried out this intervention during our day-to-day activities. Some examples of the multiple settings used were our work, office hours, home, and leisure times, as well as potential for exercise. The materials used were the Fitbit itself, our computer to access our data, and the money for our compensation to be earned. The compensation varied in amount from baseline to intervention. Baseline had the highest compensation of $1 for submission of daily steps. Once Criterion 1 was implemented, the compensation changed from $1 to 50 cents and remained at that level for both criterions. The 50 cents can be earned for reaching the daily step goal and submitting the steps online. Should you miss a day or not reach your step goal, no formal punishment was administered, just less compensation was earned. We used frequency data collection method to collect, and each graph was broken down into a 5-minute interval on the Fitbit website where we were able to access our daily steps. When graphing each participant's data, it was graphed using a changing criterion design with up to 2 criterions if daily step goals were met. As mentioned before, after the 5 consecutive days of baseline, Criterion 1 was implemented, and should you have reached that daily step goal and increased by 1,000 steps, Criterion 2 would have been implemented on day 15 of intervention. For baseline, there was no formal step goal to be met, as an average daily steps was needed for Criterion 1 of the intervention. The only requirement of baseline was to submit step count online to earn your compensation. And finally, for our methods section, each Fitbit was worn on a 5-day consecutive basis, preferably Monday through Friday, to have 2 rest days that would have been Saturday and Sunday. However, if a participant was unable to meet their step goal one day, they could continue that 5 consecutive day data collection to reach their goal, followed by 2 rest days. Submission for intervention phase was the same as baseline. Participants were to upload by midnight their step count and to complete the behavior change project form.
So the IOA for our replication ended up being 100%. The way we calculated IOA is everybody took a picture or a screenshot of their Fitbit data and uploaded that, as well as typed in the date and a self-report of that number. So we then compared the self-reported number to the picture to get the IOA, and the formula for that is the number of correct self-reports divided by the total number of reports times 100. Our treatment fidelity ended up being pretty good. Our main lapses in fidelity involved missing pictures or posting past the midnight deadline the day of. So out of our 80 total posts, we had 2 missing photos and 19 late posts.
Okay, so the results from our replicated study indicated the same results from the original study. The replication study hypothesized that using an internet-based contingency management system would increase step count in adults, and this was supported. The study was found that while it was effective in the sense of being more aware of your daily step count, it was not increased as much as hoped during the total duration of the study. And our first graph is from Haley.
This is my graph at the completion of the intervention. As you can see, there was a steady upward trend of increasing daily steps. I did, however, not meet my step goal, I believe, 2 days, which is where you can see those dips in the graphs. Those were due to environmental factors such as a snow day, as well as a formal event where I did not wear my Fitbit, so I didn't record nearly as much as I should have. But overall, you can see that I went up and above my baseline data in both phases, criterion 1 and criterion 2.
Next graph is Catherine.
My personal results for this replication study showed an increase in step counts in both criterion phases. The baseline phase of this project took place in mid-February during vacation week, and my average number of steps was pretty low at 3,578. Baseline was stable with one higher step count. My first week's goal was 4,578 and was met 5 out of 5 days and surpassed by at least 1,000 steps on all those days. The following week, my goal was 7,365, which was significantly higher than the previous week's goal and required a little bit more conscious effort to obtain. During week 2, I met my step goal on 3 out of those 5 days, indicating the end of the experiment according to our procedural protocol. Once I had met that goal on the 3rd out of the 5 days, my step counts on the final 2 days dropped below the goal level. This likely happened because I knew I'd already met the goal for that week. But interestingly, those final 2 step days counts were still above my baseline. Overall, this intervention seemed effective for me, and I would expect that an additional goal period would show that.
Next graph is Lauren.
So for my replication, I had a fairly steady upward trend of increasing steps. So you can see my first criterion, my goal was set at 8,064, and I maintained that fairly well. And my second one was 9,713. Now you can see some discrepancies in my data where I had some much lower days, and those were due to some technical malfunctions I had. Just when my Fitbit quit working, just like shut down and quit collecting data, and I had to hook it up to the computer to reset it. I also had some environmental factors, such as testing with my students, that required me to be in a room all day doing testing, not moving around a lot. So those are things kind of out of my control that would affect my step count.
All right, next is my graph. So my personal results for the study showed an increase in my steps from baseline into intervention. The graph that I selected, as well as 4 other participants in the study, was a change in criteria design. This was graph selected because the criterion changed from each phase of baseline into week 1 of intervention and then into week 2 of intervention. While my steps did increase from what they were previous to starting the study, they did not increase as much as I wished. As a personal limitation, while replicating the study, I didn't feel like I was motivated enough. Other factors that contributed to my goal not being met each day was environmental factors. And all days my personal goal was met. I feel as though it was due to going to the gym, trying to increase my physical activity as well as my step count. And then my goal for change for the criteria 1 was 5,000, and then once I met that 3 out of the 5 days, I changed it to 6,000, increasing it by 1,000 for criterion 2. Iris graph.
So if you look at my graph, you can see that from baseline to intervention, there was an increase in the steps. But due to only reaching the goal once in a week's time frame, I didn't see fit to increase my step goal for the following week. As you can see, during the baseline phase, my average was 11,535 steps. And during the intervention phase, it increased to 14,310. So again, there was an increase there. I did not reach my goal as much as I would have liked, a couple days and snow days, which limited the walking that I was doing. But overall, looking at my graph, you can see that the intervention did work for me personally.
Okay, so in our conclusion, if a step goal was met 3 out of 5 days, an increase was placed on step count. That increase was based solely on that specific participant. 4 out of 5 participants increased their step goal by 1,000 going into the second week of intervention. This will be displayed in the graphs that we just saw. The participant that did not reach their goal for their steps, in order to increase their step count, did a basic A-B design, while all other 4 participants who did reach their goal to switch over their step goal did a change in criteria design due to the criteria changing for each phase. So we had a few limitations for this replication study. The first was technical issues, which one participant reported that a Fitbit glitch occurred for an unknown reason. This causes a limitation due to daily step count not being accurate for that day, resulting in a low count and an unwanted decrease for the step goal. All participants agreed that personal schedules were extremely challenging while trying to maintain a specific step count goal that was set. This included school schedules with other classes, inclement weather conditions, and work. I personally felt as though once intervention began and a step goal was added, my schedule got a little hectic and I was not able to reach my goal the 5 out of 5 days like I hoped. The monetary compensation did not seem to be very motivating due to this being a replication study and you not actually being compensated for reaching your step goal for that week. And a short duration of 2 weeks was not enough time to see a true effect on a consistent increase in the step count. And these are our references.